On March 8, 2025, at just after 1 p.m., a violent confrontation erupted between rival motorcycle gangs at a busy racetrack gas station off State Road 44 in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. What began as a heated argument quickly escalated into a shootout right in the middle of the afternoon during one of the busiest weeks in the state, Bike Week. Bystanders, including shoppers and other bikers, scrambled for cover as gunfire tore through the parking lot. By the time the chaos ended, 2 people had been shot. Both survived, suffering non-life-threatening injuries. The incident, captured on security and cell phone video, marked a shocking moment in what is usually a heavily policed, tourist-focused event. Authorities quickly confirmed the fight wasn't random. It was the latest violent episode in a long-running feud between 2 outlaw motorcycle clubs, the Mongols and the Warlocks. What made this confrontation different, however, was its timing and location. Broad daylight at a public gas station during Florida's highly publicized Bike Week. Bike Week background, a major event with high stakes. Every spring, Daytona Beach becomes the epicenter of motorcycle culture. Bike Week is not just a local tradition, it's one of the largest motorcycle rallies in the world, drawing hundreds of thousands of people and generating millions for Florida's economy. Local businesses depend on the influx of tourists, and public safety is always a top concern. Law enforcement agencies ramp up their presence with additional patrols, task forces, and undercover units. Their mission is clear: manage traffic, keep rival groups apart, and prevent violence before it starts. But this year, those efforts were not enough. The New Smyrna Beach shooting was not just a breach of the peace. It was a high-profile public challenge to law and order during one of Florida's marquee events. A brazen attack caught on camera. The altercation at the gas station escalated quickly. Witnesses say it started with fists, but weapons were drawn within moments. Gunfire erupted and the scene descended into chaos. Bystanders ran, 911 calls flooded in, and by the time deputies arrived, most of those involved had fled. One arrest was made that same day, 41-year-old Clinton Neal Walker. But investigators soon learned this was part of a broader, organized conflict. Surveillance footage from the gas station, combined with videos captured by witnesses, gave authorities an unprecedented look at the event from multiple angles. That evidence turned what might have been treated as a gang brawl into a serious criminal case. Investigators saw not just violence, but a public threat that endangered innocent lives. From incident to operation, a massive law enforcement response. In the weeks that followed, local and federal authorities launched a wide-reaching investigation. The Volusia County Sheriff's Office brought in the 7th Judicial Circuit State Attorney's Office, and the FBI's Jacksonville Division led a federal partnership that eventually involved 9 FBI field offices across the U.S. Rather than focus on isolated charges like assault or firearms violations, prosecutors turned to a more powerful legal tool: Florida's aggravated rioting statute, a rarely used law designed for large-scale public disorder. The decision signaled that authorities viewed the March 8th event not just as gang violence, but as an organized riot that endangered the community. Identifying suspects, technology, and tactics, investigators built their case frame by frame, analyzing security footage and cell phone videos. They compared tattoos, gang patches, and clothing to existing law enforcement databases. License plates were matched to known gang affiliates. Every detail became evidence. This strategy led to 14 search warrants executed across Florida, in counties including Volusia, Brevard, Miami-Dade, Polk, and Palm Beach, as well as out of state, including a key raid in Chesterfield County, Virginia. One major raid took place at a Mongols clubhouse in Edgewater, sending a clear message: nowhere was off limits. During the raids, authorities recovered 38 handguns and 15 long guns, all of which were catalogued and tested. The seizures were not only about evidence, they were meant to disarm and destabilize the gang's ability to engage in future violence. Operation Mongolian Beef. The crackdown begins. On July 2, 2025, law enforcement launched Operation Mongolian Beef, a coordinated sweep targeting those identified in connection with the new Smyrna Beach shooting. That day, 28 members of the Mongols Motorcycle Club were arrested. 3 additional warrants remained outstanding. This was not a typical roundup. It was a sweeping multi-agency operation that spanned multiple jurisdictions and carried serious legal weight. The central charge for nearly all suspects: aggravated rioting tied directly to the March 8 incident. Prosecutors argued that the public nature of the violence, its scale, and its timing during a major event met the threshold for the statute. At a press conference, Sheriff Mike Chitwood and State Attorney R.J. Larissa emphasized the serious threat posed by outlaw motorcycle gangs and defended the use of the controversial statute. The FBI reiterated that the investigation was still ongoing, with more arrests and charges expected. A message from law enforcement. Authorities made it clear the violence at the gas station wasn't just a biker dispute. It was a public safety emergency that warranted an aggressive and coordinated response. The public nature of the incident, the use of firearms, and the involvement of known criminal organizations turned this into one of the largest anti-gang operations in recent Florida history. Operation Mongolian Beef was both a tactical and symbolic message. Violence during Bike Week would not be tolerated, and any group responsible for disrupting public order would be pursued to the fullest extent of the law. Federal and state officials respond to Bike Week violence with coordinated crackdown. During a joint press conference, Jason Carley, special agent in charge of the FBI's Jacksonville field office, reiterated the Bureau's commitment to supporting local law enforcement in addressing violent crime. He stood alongside Florida Attorney General James Umir, who connected the operation to the state's broader strategy against organized violence. One arrest in particular drew significant attention. Among those taken into custody was Carlos Cardona Batista, identified as the president of the Volusia County chapter of the Mongols Motorcycle Club. Sheriff Mike Chitwood remarked on Batista's leadership role within the club and also noted that Batista was allegedly in the United States without legal immigration status. While this comment sparked discussion in the media, authorities clarified that Batista's immediate charges were based solely on his alleged role in the March 8 gas station shooting, not on any immigration violations. The arrests were the culmination of a months-long investigation involving multiple search warrants, firearm seizures, club-related paraphernalia, and digital evidence. By arresting nearly 30 individuals under Florida's aggravated rioting statute, prosecutors made it clear that this incident was not being treated as isolated misconduct, but as a coordinated act of public disorder. The visual impact of seeing so many defendants charged under the same statute sent a strong message. Law enforcement intends to use the full extent of the law to combat organized violence during major public events like Bike Week. For many in the community, Operation Mongolian Beef marked a significant shift in how authorities respond to such incidents. Historically, disputes between biker gangs might have resulted in a handful of arrests, with minimal long-term attention. This time, the legal and law enforcement response was far more aggressive and far-reaching. The use of a felony-level statute with federal support and coordinated arrests across multiple jurisdictions underlined how seriously officials were taking the March 8th confrontation. Even as the initial 28 defendants were processed and prepared for court, officials reminded the public that the case was far from over. 3 arrest warrants remained active and further suspects were being identified through ongoing video analysis and ballistic testing. Understanding the legal strategy behind the charges. At the heart of the prosecution strategy is Florida Statute Section 870.01, subsection 3, which defines aggravated rioting. According to the statute, a person commits aggravated rioting if, during the course of a riot, they participate with 25 or more people, cause great bodily harm to a non-participant, or cause property damage exceeding $5,000, display, use, or threaten to use a deadly weapon, or endanger the safe movement of vehicles on public roads. Under Florida law, this is classified as a second-degree felony, punishable by up to 15 years in prison, along with substantial fines and extended probation. This law was updated and expanded in 2021 through House Bill 1, also known as the Combating Public Disorder Act, introduced in the wake of nationwide protests in 2020. The goal was to give prosecutors stronger tools to charge individuals involved in large-scale public violence. The case against the Mongols marks one of the first uses of this revised statute in a gang-related context. Local officials highlighted that the March 8th incident met the legal threshold. The group involved far exceeded the 25-person requirement. Firearms were present and discharged, and innocent civilians were clearly placed in harm's way. By using this statute, prosecutors elevated the case from a gang fight to a test case of how Florida plans to prosecute group violence in public areas. The prosecutor's case: what authorities say they can prove. Authorities were careful to state that all allegations remain just that, allegations, until proven in court. Still, the outline of their case was clear. They assert that the March 8th incident was not spontaneous but a coordinated meeting between rival gangs, the Mongols and the Warlocks, that turned violent. Prosecutors say dozens of individuals from both groups arrived at the New Smyrna Beach racetrack gas station at the same time, effectively staging a premeditated street confrontation. From the state's point of view, the incident meets all elements of aggravated rioting: the number of participants, the presence and use of deadly weapons, and the direct threat to public safety. Gas station customers, employees, and passing vehicles were all exposed to danger. Authorities supported these claims with evidence collected through 14 search warrants across Florida and beyond. These included a raid on a Mongols clubhouse in Edgewater, the recovery of 38 handguns and 15 long guns, surveillance footage and digital evidence, the arrest of individuals linked to motorcycle clubs across Florida and into Virginia. Still, law enforcement emphasized that all arrested individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty, and each will have an opportunity to challenge the evidence in court. Investigators stated that the investigation's broad scope is not proof of guilt, but rather a reflection of the scale of the network being examined. Ongoing developments and continued investigation. In the days following the initial arrests, additional suspects were located and taken into custody in other counties such as Brevard and Palm Beach. These individuals were transferred to Volusia County to face charges. Officials confirmed that this wave of arrests was part of a larger pre-planned strategy. At the original press conference, Sheriff Chitwood bluntly emphasized the seriousness of the operation, stating that law enforcement would not play games and would respond to gang violence with decisive action. Even now, with the main sweep complete, the investigation continues. Officials from both the FBI and the Volusia Sheriff's Office say their teams are still reviewing hours of video footage, photographs, and physical evidence. They also indicated that more charges may be filed as further information comes to light. Why Operation Mongolian Beef matters. Operation Mongolian Beef was more than a series of arrests. It was a statement of intent. With nearly 30 arrests, multiple warrants across state lines, and federal agencies working side by side with local deputies. It marked one of the most aggressive anti-gang crackdowns in recent Florida history. The use of aggravated rioting charges against a motorcycle club is rare, and authorities made clear that the law was deliberately chosen. Sheriff Chitwood stated that the objective was to protect public safety, particularly during a major event like Bike Week. State Attorney R.J. Lariza echoed that sentiment, noting that violence in the presence of civilians would be met with the strongest legal response available. The FBI also framed the operation as part of a broader push to combat violent crime, both in Florida and nationally. What comes next? The legal phase. With the arrests completed, the focus now shifts to the courts. Defendants are scheduled for initial hearings, where their legal teams are expected to challenge the use of Florida Statute Section 870.01 open parenthesis, 3 close parenthesis, and potentially question whether the incident truly meets the criteria for aggravated rioting. Prosecutors, meanwhile, have indicated that additional charges could be filed as ongoing evidence reviews and forensic testing continue. However, the ultimate outcome will depend on what unfolds in court, not in press releases or public statements. Each defendant is entitled to a fair trial and the presumption of innocence. The legal process will determine whether this high-profile confrontation truly qualifies as aggravated rioting under Florida law. Final thoughts: a turning point for Bike Week security. What began as an 8-minute burst of violence at a gas station has now evolved into a landmark legal case. Operation Mongolian Beef not only reshaped how authorities deal with gang violence during public events, but also introduced new legal strategies with broader implications for future prosecutions. Whether this becomes a one-time crackdown or sets a precedent for future bike weeks remains to be seen. What's certain is that the incident has placed both outlaw motorcycle gangs and the laws that govern public disorder under intense scrutiny.